All right, let's dive into something, a real theological puzzle. It gets right to the heart of how a creator could even relate to its creation. And it all boils down to one seemingly simple question. Think about it for a second. It's a little weird, right? If you're this infinite, eternal being, why on earth would you need a name? I mean, names are for telling people apart, but if you're literally the only infinite thing there is, who are you distinguishing yourself from? That's the core mystery we're going to unpack. Okay, so to even begin to answer that, we have to wrap our heads around the massive, massive difference in scale we're talking about here. The gap between God and the entire universe he made. So you can see it right there. It's a total mismatch. On one hand, you've got God, infinite, eternal, boundless. And on the other hand, you've got creation, our universe, which is totally finite, temporary, and limited. The source material really hammers this home. We're talking about two completely different categories of existence. And this verse from Isaiah, wow, it just nails the point. From God's infinite perspective, all the nations, all of humanity, everything we know, it's like a single drop in a bucket or dust on a scale. It's basically nothing. The scale difference is just, it's almost impossible for us to even imagine. Okay, so this massive difference in scale, it creates a huge, huge problem, a dangerous one. The source texts are pretty clear on this. If an infinite, all-powerful being were to make direct contact with a tiny, finite creature, that creature would just be, well, annihilated, completely overwhelmed. So the big question is, how does God even begin to bridge that gap? How can he interact with his creation without destroying it? So, the first part of the solution, it's all about creating a point of contact. You know, like an interface, but one that exists right here within our own space-time. And what God does is establish what the texts call a heavenly throne. Now, don't think of a literal chair. It's more like a divine headquarters, a command center. It's a single, specific focal point for his authority within our universe. It's a way of taking all that infinite power and localizing it, pinning it down to one spot that creation can actually interact with safely. And what does he place on this throne? His name. The name basically becomes his official representative. Think of it like a divine proxy or an ambassador from the infinite realm to our finite world. This name becomes the interface. Now creatures can worship it, they can obey commands given in the name, they can hear from God through the name. And they can do all of this without being completely vaporized. It's a really clever solution for governing creation. But then a wrench gets thrown in the works. In that wrench, that big complication to this really elegant solution, comes from one of God's greatest and riskiest gifts to his creation, free will. And this sets off a critical chain reaction. See, if you give creatures the ability to choose, you also have to give them the ability to choose the wrong thing, to disobey. The texts call this sin. And the consequence for sin, it's death. So just by granting freedom, God fundamentally introduces the possibility of death into a creation that was never supposed to have it. And just like that, the entire game changes. A name that just represents authority and helps with governing, well, that's not going to cut it anymore. The problem isn't just about rules and administration now. It's existential. It's about life and death. The new number one problem that needs a solution is death itself. And this is where we get to the absolute heart of the matter. God's solution is to reveal a whole new layer, a new dimension to what his name even means. Okay, so first, God reveals his name, Yahweh. Now, the source material explains this comes from the Hebrew word Hayah, which basically means to be or to exist. So the name itself is a huge statement about who God is. He is existence, the great I am, the one who just is. But then, down the line in the story, a new name shows up, Jesus. And this is where everything clicks into place. The name Jesus, or Yeshua in Hebrew, literally translates to Yahweh is salvation. See, it's not just a name, it's a full sentence. It's a declaration of purpose. So here's the absolute key takeaway. The name itself is the solution to the problem of death. It's a promise baked right into the name that says the very source of existence, Yahweh, is salvation. It's not that he's a God who sometimes saves people. No, his very name declares that salvation is his nature. It's who he is. And the text couldn't be clearer about this. The name is given because of its purpose. The name is the mission. He's called Yahweh is salvation for one reason, because that's exactly what he came to do.
But here's the thing. To actually solve the deep problem of death that came from sin, just having a powerful name wasn't quite enough. The time for a proxy was over. The proxy had to become a person.
And this is really the final incredible piece of the puzzle. The argument in the text is that to truly fix this, you needed a mediator, someone who could stand in both worlds at once. Now, a finite creature like you or me, we can't become infinite. That's a one-way street. So the only possible solution was for the infinite God to become a finite creature. And this is like the ultimate upgrade. The connection goes from being indirect through a proxy to being totally direct. Instead of getting messages from angels or prophets, you get the authority right there, in person. It's the difference between hearing a story about God and having God show up in the room and speak for himself. And this quote from Jesus, it's just the mic drop, the stunning conclusion to the whole thing. He's basically saying the separation is over. The proxy isn't needed anymore because the real thing is standing right in front of you. To see him is to see the infinite God, but now in a form that's visible, that's accessible. The interface became a person.
So we kind of end up right back where we started, but with a whole new perspective, right? That name? It was never just a label. It was an interface. Then it was a promise. And finally, it became a person. It's this incredible story of how an infinite God figured out a way not just to talk to a finite world, but to actually step inside of it, to save it. It really makes you wonder, if a name is how an infinite God meets a finite world, what does it truly mean when God becomes the name himself?